At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Benefits info changed. The login trail pointed to my boss's corporate account, and when I asked my wife about it, she smiled and said I must be confused. Denver, Colorado has a way of making nights feel clean. Dry air, sharp stars, the faint hush that comes after the last planes cut over the city. That night, our house sounded like normal life, the dishwasher finishing its cycle, the heater clicking on, my daughter's cartoon laughter still echoing in the hallway because I'd let her stay up 10 extra minutes. Then my phone lit up on the coffee table. A company notification, the kind I usually skim without thinking. Except this one had a subject line that didn't belong at home. I sat up like the couch had teeth. I work IT support for a mid-sized logistics company, the kind with badges and policies and 1,000 little systems that all talk to each other. I know what's normal. Benefits changes don't happen at 11:47 p.m. They definitely don't happen when I'm sitting in sweatpants, watching my kid argue with a stuffed rabbit about bedtime. I opened it, and my eyes went straight to the audit line. Admin console. That was not me. I don't have access to the admin console for benefits. Only HR and a few executives do, and the name attached to the session made my throat tighten. My boss, Evan Mercer. I didn't even feel anger first. I felt that quiet dread, the kind that arrives like a cold hand on your neck, because the scary part wasn't, why would he? The scary part was, how would he, and why now? Holly came into the living room from the kitchen with a glass of water. She stood on the right side of the doorway, hair clipped up, face calm in that way that always made people call her sweet. She looked at my phone, then at my face, then away again like she'd seen weather coming. "What's wrong?" she asked. I kept my voice low because our daughter was still awake, padding around in socks down the hall. I just got a notification. Benefits info changed. Holly didn't blink. Okay. It says it was done through the admin console, I said, through Evan's corporate SSO. Her mouth moved like she was about to say something automatic. Then she stopped herself. That tiny pause was nothing, but it landed heavy. She set the water down too carefully, like she was placing something fragile where it wouldn't break. "You probably clicked something at work," she said. "Or it's a glitch. You always think everything's a conspiracy." That wasn't her normal tone. Holly normally argued in circles with questions and soft sighs, the kind that makes you feel like you're the one raising the temperature. This time she said it like a fact and watched to see if I'd accept it. "I didn't click anything," I said. From the hallway, my daughter called, "Dad, can you tuck me in for real this time?" "In a minute, kiddo," I called back, then looked at Holly again. "Does Evan have your email?" Holly's face tightened for half a second, then smoothed out. "Why would he?" I stared at her. We'd been married 10 years. I knew the difference between her real confusion and her performance confusion. This was the second one. I stood up and the couch creaked loud in the quiet house. Holly's eyes followed me like a security camera, not like a spouse. That made my stomach go weird, like I'd turned into a suspect in my own living room. I tucked my daughter in and read the same book we always read, the one with the brave mouse who keeps trying doors that won't open. She asked for The Slow Voice, so I gave it to her, even while my mind was rerunning the notification like it was a clip I could scrub for clues. When I kissed her forehead, she grabbed my hand. "Mom's mad again?" she whispered. "No," I lied. "Mom's just tired." My daughter nodded like she didn't believe me but didn't want to fight about it. That's when the dread got worse, because kids don't need proof. They need patterns. When I came back to the kitchen, Holly was wiping down a counter that was already clean. She kept wiping the same spot, slow and methodical, like she could erase something that had happened. "Show me the notification," she said. I held the phone out. She leaned in, and I watched her eyes move across the screen too fast, not reading, scanning. Then she shrugged. "Evan's your boss," she said. "He probably has access to all kinds of stuff." "Not my benefits," I said, "and not at midnight." Holly's jaw flexed. "You're not getting fired, okay? Stop catastrophizing." My chest got tight. "Why would you say that?" She froze. Not long, just long enough. Then she turned the water faucet on and let it run like the sound could cover her thoughts. That's how the silent treatment started in our house. Not with slammed doors. With water. With dishes that didn't need washing. With her refusing to meet my eyes while she acted like she was being reasonable, and I was being dramatic. The next morning, Denver was bright and cold. The kind of sun that looks friendly and still cuts through you. I drove I-25 with my mind stuck on that audit line. At work, the building felt different the second I walked in. People were smiling too hard. My badge beeped and a security guard glanced down at his tablet like he was waiting for a red flag to pop. Mark from HR stopped me by the elevator. "Hey, Ryan," he said, voice casual, eyes not casual. "Can you come by later? Just a quick check-in." "About what?" I asked. He smiled like he'd practiced it. "Just housekeeping." Housekeeping. That word again. Cleaning. Erasing. I went to my desk and pulled up the internal logs I actually did have access to. I didn't need to hack. I didn't need anything illegal. IT has visibility by design. Timestamps, device fingerprints, session tokens. The company runs on receipts. The benefits portal activity showed one admin session, Evan Mercer, and the originating network wasn't the office. It was a residential ISP. My heart thumped once, hard. Residential, not corporate VPN, not the building. I stared at the line until my eyes hurt, then looked down at my coffee, untouched and cooling like I'd already gone numb. At lunch, I texted Holly. She didn't answer. An hour later, she sent one message. All caps, like she was scolding a child, like the main danger wasn't someone changing my benefits, but me noticing. That afternoon, HR's quick check-in wasn't quick. Mark sat with another man I'd never seen before, someone with a badge that didn't have a name printed on it. Security. They asked me questions that weren't questions. I tried to keep my voice steady, but my pulse was loud in my ears. "Why are you asking me this?" Mark sighed. "Because there was an administrative action linked to you, and we need to make sure you're okay." Linked to me. That was the first time I understood what was happening. Not fully, not yet, but enough to feel the shape of it. Someone wasn't just pressing buttons. Someone was positioning me. When I got home, Holly's mom's car was in the driveway. Of course it was. Like the universe kept delivering witnesses right on schedule. Inside, Holly stood on the right side of the living room with her arms folded. Her mom sat on the couch like a judge. My daughter hovered near the hallway, clutching her backpack to her chest even though it was already unpacked. Thumbnail ready, frozen in my mind. Me in the doorway with my work lanyard still around my neck and my keys digging into my palm. Holly on the right staring me down with a phone glowing in her hand. Her mom pointing a finger like she's delivering a verdict. My daughter wide-eyed between us and a manila envelope on the coffee table like a prop waiting for its cue. "What's this?" I asked, nodding at the envelope. Holly's mom answered for her. "It's information. For the family. since you've been acting strange." My daughter whispered, "Dad, please don't be loud." I wasn't loud. I wasn't even angry yet. I just felt that cold dread deepen, because my kid was already bracing for impact and I still didn't know where the hit was coming from. I walked to the coffee table and pulled the envelope closer. Holly's hand twitched like she wanted to stop me, but she didn't. She wanted me to open it. She wanted me to touch the thing. Inside was a printed screenshot. A benefits form submission page with my name at the top, and down in the corner, in small gray text, a line that made my stomach drop. Holly's voice went soft, almost gentle. "See? It's not what you think." I looked up at her. "Then what is it?" She held my gaze, then glanced at her phone without thinking. Just a reflex, like she was checking whether someone was watching. And that's when her screen lit up with a notification banner. A calendar invite. From Evan Mercer. I only saw the first 3 words before she swiped it away. Holly's face didn't change, but her hand shook. Holly's thumb hovered over her phone like she could erase what I'd seen by sheer force. Her mom sat back on the couch, chin up, watching me the way people watch a dog they've decided might bite. "What meeting?" I asked, keeping my voice low on purpose. "Why does my boss have a calendar invite about my future on your phone?" Holly's eyes flicked toward the hallway where our daughter stood. That look wasn't concern. It was calculation, the same way you glance at a smoke alarm when you're about to burn something. "It's nothing," she said. "Work stuff. Evan asked if I could help with a surprise for you." Her mom gave a little laugh that wasn't amused. "He's always twisting things." I stared at Holly. "A surprise about my benefits at midnight." Holly's mouth tightened. "You're making this scary." Our daughter shifted her weight, backpack still hugged to her chest like armor. "Dad," she whispered, "can we just eat?" That hit me right in the ribs. I nodded at her, forced my shoulders down. "Yeah." "We can eat." I backed off, not because I believed Holly, but because my kid's voice was the only thing in the room that didn't feel rehearsed. Holly's mom watched me step back like she'd won a point. At the table, nobody touched their food. The plates sat there like props. Holly sat on the right side, phone face down beside her fork. Her mom kept her purse on her lap, both hands on it, like she was ready to leave fast or pull something out. My daughter poked at a chicken nugget, eyes lowered. Quiet dread wrapped around the house again, the kind that turns the clink of silverware into something sharp. I kept hearing the words from HR, linked to you, administrative action, make sure you're okay, like they were already building a version of me that wasn't me. When dinner ended, Holly's mom stood up and patted my daughter's shoulder like she was comforting a witness. "Come here," she said. "Let's get you ready for bed." I didn't like that. It wasn't her routine. It wasn't her place. It was a move. "I'll do it," I said. Holly's mom didn't look at me. "She's overwhelmed. You've been tense. Let her have calm." Holly didn't contradict her. That was its own answer. I followed them down the hall anyway and stood in the doorway while my daughter changed into pajamas. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She kept glancing toward her mom, like she was checking the temperature before she spoke. When Holly's mom finally left, Holly didn't walk her out. She stayed in the kitchen, tapping at her phone with quick little movements. I heard the faintest buzz of a sent message. I stepped into the kitchen. "Who are you texting?" Holly didn't look up. "Nobody." My stomach tightened. I heard it. She lifted her eyes slowly, flat and tired. "Do you want to do this right now?" That was the thing she always did. Turn my question into a character flaw. Make curiosity look like aggression. I didn't raise my voice. Show me your calendar. No, she said, immediate. Show me, I repeated, and it came out sharper than I meant. My daughter's bedroom door creaked from down the hall, like she'd shifted in bed to listen. Holly's face changed at that sound. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. Not in front of her. I'm not doing anything in front of her, I whispered back. I'm asking you why my boss is sending you invites about my job. Holly's hands shook again, then she curled them into fists and hid them against her sides. Because you're hard to manage, she snapped, and then she seemed to regret the words as soon as they left her mouth. I stared at her. Manage? She swallowed. You always assume the worst. Evan said. He said you're spiraling. My chest went cold. Evan said that to you. Holly's eyes darted away. One more slip. I backed up a step, like the kitchen floor had tilted. How often do you talk to him? Holly's phone buzzed again. She grabbed it too fast, thumb swiping the screen, then froze. She had a new notification, and this one she couldn't swallow before I saw the header. Housekeeping. The same word HR used. The same word Holly's mom used. Like they were all reading off the same script. Holly saw my face and did something I'd never seen her do. She deleted the notification in one swipe, then opened her settings like she'd been doing it for weeks. I can't live like this, she said, voice suddenly soft, wounded. You watching me? I'm not watching you, I said. I'm watching my life get moved around without my hands on it. She turned her back, and that was the beginning of the silence. Not the angry kind. The kind where she's present but unavailable. The kind that makes you feel like you're talking into a room with no echo. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my side listening to the house settle and the heater click and the faint ping of Holly's phone out in the kitchen. Every time I heard it, my stomach tightened like a fist. At 2:13 a.m., I got an email from HR. Do not discuss with staff. Like I was contagious. I didn't wake Holly. I just sat at the edge of the bed and watched her breathing, watched how peaceful her face looked when she wasn't actively shaping me into a problem. In the morning, Denver's sky was a hard blue, the kind that looks honest. I dropped my daughter off at school and kept my smile on until she walked through the doors. She turned back once and waved. Then her eyes flicked past me, over my shoulder, like she was looking for someone else. That made my skin crawl. At work, the conference room felt like an interrogation room pretending to be professional. Frosted glass, a plate of untouched pastries, a pitcher of water that nobody would drink. Evan Mercer was already inside. He stood when I entered, the way powerful people stand when they want to look respectful while they tighten the leash. Mark from HR sat at the table. The security guy with the nameless badge sat near the door. A fourth person I didn't recognize typed on a laptop, eyes never lifting. Thumbnail ready, burned into me. Me on the left with my lanyard and badge still hanging from my neck, Evan in the center with his hands folded like a pastor. Holly's midnight housekeeping email printed on the table between Mark and the laptop woman, and my phone face up beside my notebook, screen smudged from too many panic scrolls. Evan smiled. Ryan, sit. His voice was calm enough to be cruel. Mark slid a folder toward me. We're documenting a pattern of unusual access attempts and potential policy violations. I opened the folder, hands steady by pure spite. The first page was a screenshot of a login prompt. The second was a log excerpt. My username was highlighted in yellow, timestamps circled in red. You're saying I tried to access the admin console, I said. We're saying your credentials were involved, Mark corrected, like that distinction made it kinder. Evan leaned forward, elbows on the table. Do you have any idea how serious this is? I looked at him. Yes. That's why I'm asking why you were in my benefits portal at midnight. The room went quiet. The laptop woman stopped typing for a beat, then started again faster. Evan's eyebrows rose just a touch. I wasn't. I pulled my phone out, opened the audit line, and placed it on the table. It says your corporate SSO, residential origin, not the office. Mark glanced at Evan, then back to me. Ryan, we understand you're under stress. There it was, the framing. Not my evidence. My mental state. Evan sighed like he'd been forced into patience. If you're implying someone used my credentials, you're accusing an executive of misconduct. I'm saying the logs show your account, I said, and my wife got an email from you last night titled housekeeping. Evan's face didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. Your wife? The laptop woman's typing paused again. Mark cleared his throat. This meeting is about your access, Ryan, not your family. But my family was in it. I could feel it like a handprint on everything. Evan stood slowly, and when he spoke, his voice stayed level, but it carried weight. We're going to place you on administrative leave while we investigate. You'll surrender your badge and laptop today. Surrender. Like I was already guilty. My phone buzzed at that exact moment. Peace. The word that always meant obedience. I looked up at Evan, and for the first time his calm slipped just enough for me to see the edge of something else underneath it. Something satisfied. Then another message came in, from an unknown number, and my blood turned cold. I didn't have a porch camera, which meant someone else thought I did, and they wanted me scared on schedule. I sat there for a second too long after Evan said administrative leave, staring at the pastries like they were supposed to explain why my life was being rearranged by people who didn't live in it. My phone kept buzzing on the table, the unknown number still sitting there like a ticking thing. I didn't have a porch camera. That was the point. Someone wanted me to feel behind. Someone wanted me to scramble. Mark slid a form toward me with 2 fingers like he didn't want my stress to be contagious. Sign here acknowledging you're on leave. IT will collect your laptop. I didn't sign. Not yet. I looked at Evan. If you're so sure I'm the problem, why does my wife have your housekeeping emails? Evan's smile stayed polite, but his eyes sharpened again. Ryan, he said softly, don't make this uglier than it has to be. That sentence landed like a hand on my throat. Not a threat you can quote, a threat you can feel. Security walked me to my desk. My coworkers pretended not to stare, which is how you can tell they're staring. I packed my personal mug, a framed picture of my daughter missing 2 front teeth, and the cheap notebook I'd been using to track little fixes around the house. My badge felt heavier than it should have, like it knew it was about to be taken away. When I handed it over at the front desk, the guard didn't meet my eyes. Outside, the cold Denver air hit my face like a slap. I sat in my car and opened my home screen again, thumb hovering over apps I hadn't opened in months. Neighborhood Watch, Smart Home, delivery camera integrations. Anything. Nothing. I texted the unknown number back before I could talk myself out of it. No response. Instead, I got another message from Holly. Stability. Another word that meant control. I drove anyway, not fast, not angry, just pulled forward by a dread that had a destination. When I turned onto our street, I saw something that made my hands go cold on the steering wheel. A little black doorbell camera sat beside my front door, angled slightly down, its tiny lens facing the driveway like an eye that never blinked. It hadn't been there yesterday. I sat in the car for a full minute, staring at it. Quiet dread poured into the space between my ribs. The camera didn't move. It didn't have to. It was already doing what it was meant to do: change my behavior. I walked up the driveway slowly, forcing myself not to glance at it too obviously, like I was trying to look innocent to my own house. The front door opened before I could touch the knob. Holly stood on the right side of the frame, already dressed, hair neat, phone in her hand. Her mom was behind her with her arms crossed. My daughter hovered at the end of the hallway in her socks, clutching her stuffed fox. Frozen like a thumbnail. Me on the porch with my car keys pinched in my fist. Holly on the right blocking the doorway with her phone glowing. Her mom glaring over her shoulder. My daughter in the background with wide, wet eyes. And that new black camera staring at all of us from the wall like it belonged there. "What is that?" I asked, nodding at the doorbell cam. Holly didn't even look at it. "Safety." "Since when?" Her mom answered like it was a courtroom. "Since things got unpredictable." My daughter whispered, "Dad, please." I lowered my voice. "Holly, I didn't install that." "I did," she said, and finally her eyes met mine. "Because you keep escalating." That was so backward it made my vision blur for a second. "I escalated? Someone accessed my benefits at midnight. HR just put me on leave. And now there's a camera on my door." Holly's expression stayed controlled, but her hand tightened on her phone. "You're proving why we needed it." I stepped inside and closed the door behind me, and the click sounded too final. I looked up at the little camera again. A tiny blue light blinked once like it was saying hello. "Show me the account," I said. Holly's mouth twitched. "What?" "The app," I said. "Show me who owns it." Holly turned her body slightly, putting her right shoulder closer to me and her phone further away, like she was protecting the screen without thinking. "It's just installed. I haven't set it up fully." Her mom scoffed. Listen to him. Always interrogating. I didn't argue with her mom. I walked past them, straight to the kitchen where the router sat on the counter like it had been moved. A white Ethernet cable trailed behind it that hadn't been there before. My stomach tightened. That's not how "just installed" looks. I crouched and looked at the router's sticker. The admin password label had a fresh smear across it like someone's thumb had rubbed it hard. I stood up slowly. "You changed our network." Holly's voice went sharp. "Stop! Not in front of her." Not in front of her. The same line every time the truth got close. I looked down the hallway. My daughter had edged closer. The fox hugged to her chest. Her face had that careful, guarded look kids get when they know adults are lying but don't have the vocabulary to name it. I swallowed hard. "Go get your shoes, Bug," I told her gently. "We're going for a drive." Holly's head snapped up. "No." Her mom stepped forward. "Absolutely not. You're not taking her when you're like this." "Like what?" I said, and I hated how my voice shook on the last word. "Like a dad who wants to breathe?" Holly moved in front of the hallway, the right side of the house suddenly her territory. "She's staying," she said. That was the home battlefield right there. Not yelling, positioning, blocking doors, making me ask permission to be a parent. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I looked at the camera. The tiny blue dot blinked again. My skin went cold. "Holly, I said quietly. Who has access to that feed? Holly's eyes flickered. No one. Just me. Then why did someone text me telling me it's live? Holly went still. That pause, that microscopic delay, the same one from last night. Her mom stepped in fast, filling the silence with certainty. Because you've been paranoid. You probably texted yourself from some burner. People do that. My daughter made a small sound, like a hiccup she was trying to swallow. Mom, she whispered, I don't want cameras. Holly's face cracked for a half-second, then hardened again. It's not for you, she said too quickly. It's for peace. Peace, stability, housekeeping. Words that sounded clean while everything underneath got dirty. I didn't fight them in the kitchen. I went to the garage instead, because the garage was the only place in the house that still felt like mine. Tools on hooks, bike pump in the corner, the smell of oil and cardboard. But the garage felt wrong the second I stepped in. A new cardboard box sat on my workbench, taped shut, with a shipping label ripped off so you couldn't read it. Beside it was a small folded paper, the kind you get with electronics. I opened it. It was an installation sheet for the doorbell camera, and in the corner was a handwritten Wi-Fi name and password. Our Wi-Fi name wasn't that. I pulled out my phone and checked available networks. The old one was gone. A new one was there with a name that made my heart jolt because it wasn't random. It was a phrase I'd only ever used at work, a private joke from a Slack thread months ago, something Evan Mercer would recognize. My hand started to shake. Not rage, not panic, something colder, a dread with proof forming inside it. From the house, I heard Holly's mom say loudly, "He's isolating himself again." And Holly answered, quieter, "Let him. It's better if he calms down. Better if I calmed down. Better if I disappeared into a narrative they could manage." I stepped back into the kitchen and said, very carefully, "Holly, I'm going to ask you one last time. Who set up that camera?" Holly's face went blank. "I did." I stared at her, then lifted my phone and showed her the network name. "Then tell me why the Wi-Fi name is something from my boss." Holly's pupils tightened. Her mom's expression changed, too, just slightly like a mask slipping. And before either of them could speak, the doorbell camera made a soft chime. Someone was at the front door. Holly's phone lit up immediately with a live feed preview, and the name at the top of the screen wasn't hers. It was an account label, a first initial and last name. Holly's thumb hovered, trapped between swiping it away and letting me see it, and her mother's face went pale with sudden, furious fear. Then the doorbell chimed again, longer this time, like the person outside knew exactly how loud it sounded inside. The doorbell chimed a third time, slow and patient, like whoever stood outside wasn't worried about being welcome. Holly's phone was still lit in her hand on the right side of the kitchen, and that little live feed preview pulsing. Her mom's face had gone tight and pale, like she'd just realized the room wasn't hers to control anymore. "Don't," Holly whispered, and it wasn't to her mom, it was to me. I walked to the front door anyway. My fingers were numb around my keys. Behind me, my daughter's small footsteps stopped halfway down the hall like she'd come closer without meaning to. When I opened the door, it wasn't Evan Mercer standing there in a suit. It was worse, in a way. 2 police officers, 1 man and 1 woman. Calm, polite, that practiced neutral you see when someone called them with a story and they don't know which parts are real yet. "Ryan Carter?" the female officer asked. "Yes," I said, and my voice sounded too steady for how hard my heart was hitting. "We got a welfare check request," the male officer said. Someone in the home reported they're concerned about escalating behavior. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like my body forgot how to hold itself upright. Behind me, Holly's mom stepped into view like she'd been waiting for her entrance. Holly stayed to the right, phone still glowing, thumb hovering like she might record if the scene went her way. Thumbnail ready, frozen in my brain. Me on the left in the doorway with my keys clenched, the two officers centered on the porch with radios on their shoulders. Holly on the right, framed by the entryway holding her phone like a weapon, and her mother behind her with a hand pressed to her chest, performing concern. On the wall beside my head, that new doorbell camera stared straight at all of us, its tiny blue light blinking. "I didn't request a welfare check," I said. The female officer nodded slightly, like she'd expected that. "We understand. We just need to make sure everyone's okay." My daughter appeared in the hallway, her stuffed fox tucked under her arm. The moment the officers saw her, their eyes softened. The moment Holly saw her, her face sharpened again like she was counting points. "We're fine," Holly said quickly. "He's just under stress. He lost control at work today." I snapped my head toward her. "I didn't lose control." Holly's mom cut in, voice trembling in all the right places. "He's been paranoid, accusing people. He's been up all night. We're worried for the child." The word child came out like a label on a file. The male officer looked at me. "Sir, do you have any weapons in the home?" "No," I said immediately. "Nothing like that." The female officer glanced past me at Holly. "Ma'am, can we step inside and talk separately for a minute?" Holly's eyes flicked to her phone. "Do we need to?" "It would help," the officer said. Holly hesitated just long enough for me to feel it. Then she nodded and stepped aside, still staying on the right like that side of every room belonged to her. Inside, the officers asked soft questions that didn't feel soft at all. About arguments, about sleep, about whether I'd ever scared my wife. Every question was a doorway that could be turned into a lock. I answered carefully. I kept my hands visible. I kept my voice low because my daughter was listening. I could feel her eyes on me from the hallway, trying to figure out if she needed to be afraid of her own father. That quiet dread, the kind that makes you swallow wrong, sat on my tongue. The female officer crouched slightly to meet my daughter's height. "Hey, sweetheart, are you okay?" My daughter nodded too fast. "Yes." "Do you feel safe at home?" the officer asked gently. My daughter's gaze slid to Holly, then to Holly's mom, then back to me, like her eyes were walking through a minefield. "I just want quiet," she whispered. The officer's face changed, just a fraction. She stood and looked at the adults again with new seriousness. Holly's voice went bright, too bright. "See? She's sensitive." He raises his voice and she shuts down. I felt something hot rise in my chest, but I held it down because I could hear my daughter's breathing. "I'm not raising my voice," I said. "I'm trying to understand why my boss has access to a camera on my front door." The male officer blinked. "Your boss?" Holly laughed like I'd told a joke. "He's spiraling again." I turned my phone toward the officers and showed them the network name I'd seen in the garage and the feed label I'd caught on Holly's screen. I didn't have a screenshot. I had a memory and a shaking gut. The female officer held my gaze. "Do you have proof that the camera account is under someone else's name?" Holly lifted her chin. "It's under mine." "Then show them," I said. Holly didn't move. Her mom shifted her purse higher on her shoulder, ready to flee or fight. "I don't have to prove anything," Holly said quietly. This is my house, too." The male officer sighed, that tired exhale of someone who's seen families weaponize systems before. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. Nobody's in trouble right now, but if you two can't de-escalate, you may need to spend the night apart." Apart? Like a solution you can buy at a store. When the officers left, the house didn't feel safer. It felt occupied. Like the air had been stamped with an official seal. My daughter disappeared into her room without a word. I heard the soft click of her door, like she was closing herself away from a war she didn't start. Holly's mom didn't even wait. "I'm going to stay," she announced, like she'd just been granted permission by the police. "For stability." Holly nodded once. No eye contact with me. No apology. Just that silent, controlled distance that makes you feel like you're shouting even when you're whispering. I walked into the garage again because I couldn't stay in the kitchen with their calm. I needed something solid. Something that didn't perform. I opened the cardboard box on my workbench. Inside was the router's packaging. The old router packaging. That meant our actual router had been swapped, and the box was the evidence they forgot to throw away. At the bottom was a folded receipt. Not a store receipt. An emailed invoice printout on plain paper. No address, no card number, just a line item and a name. My hands went cold again, and this time it wasn't just dread. It was a straight line. A receipt. A thread you could pull. I walked back inside with the paper in my fist. Holly was on the right side of the living room now, sitting stiffly with her phone. Her mom had planted herself on the couch like she owned the cushions. I held up the invoice. "Explain this." Holly stared at it for half a beat too long. Her mom's eyes widened, then narrowed. "That's fake," Holly said quickly. "It came out of the box your new router came in," I said. "Why is my boss's name on it?" Holly's face went hard. "Because you're obsessed with him. You're dragging him into our marriage." "I didn't drag him," I said, and my voice finally cracked. "He walked in. On your phone. On my benefits. On my front door." Holly stood up so fast the couch cushion sprang back. "Stop," she hissed. "You're going to scare her." "She asked for quiet," I said. "Not lies." That landed. Holly flinched like I'd slapped her with a sentence. Her mom stepped forward, finger pointed. "You don't talk to my daughter like that." I didn't even look at her. My eyes stayed on Holly. "Show me your email," I said. "Search Mercer. Right now." Holly's jaw tightened. She didn't move. And then, like the universe loved timing, my phone rang. A number from my office. I answered. "Hello?" Mark from HR spoke in that careful corporate voice. "Ryan, we need to confirm you've surrendered all company devices." "I did," I said. "And we need your home address on file," he continued, too smooth, "for certified documentation." My blood chilled. What documentation? There was a pause, then the sound of a breath. "Ryan, please don't make this harder. You'll receive the packet tomorrow." Packet. Certified. Documentation. The language of a door closing. I looked at Holly. She was watching me with a blank face, but her phone was angled away from me, screen turned slightly inward like she'd been doing all day. I lowered my voice. "Mark," I said, "why is Evan Mercer accessing my benefits portal at midnight?" Another pause, longer this time. Then, quietly, Mark said, "Ryan, Evan told us you're not stable. He said your wife is scared." I felt the room tilt. Not because of Mark's words, because Holly didn't react like someone hearing a lie. She reacted like someone hearing a line she'd already agreed to. I ended the call and stared at her. "Did you tell them you're scared of me?" Holly's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I told them the truth," she said. "What truth?" I asked, voice thin. "That I noticed." Holly's eyes flicked toward the hallway, toward our daughter's closed door. Then she looked back at me and said, very softly, like she was offering mercy, "Ryan, you need to sleep somewhere else tonight." Her mom nodded, satisfied. "That's best." I stood there, keys in one hand, Evan's invoice in the other, and felt the quiet dread turn into something sharper. Because if I left, they'd call it de-escalation, and if I stayed, they'd call it proof. Then Holly's phone buzzed on the right side of the room, and a banner flashed across the top of her screen before she could swipe it away. Holly's thumb froze mid-swipe. Her mom saw it too. And in the hallway, my daughter's door creaked open just a little, like she'd been listening the whole time. My daughter's door opened a crack, then a little more, and her face appeared in the slice of hallway light. Her hair was mussed from bed. The fox was tucked under her arm like a shield. She looked at me, then at Holly, then at her grandmother. Her eyes landed on the glow of Holly's phone and stayed there, as if the light itself felt loud. "Can we stop?" she said, voice tiny. "I want quiet, like real quiet." Holly's expression flickered. Her mom's mouth tightened. Neither of them moved toward our daughter. Not immediately. They held their places like this was still a match and the kid was just a spectator asking for the volume turned down. I swallowed and forced my voice gentle. "Hey, Bug, come here." She took 2 steps, then stopped again, torn between me and them. It made my chest ache in a way I didn't have words for. Holly stepped forward first, fast. "Sweetie, go back to your room. Daddy's upset." "I'm not upset at her," I said. I kept my eyes on my daughter. "I'm upset at adults acting weird." Holly's mom snapped, "Language." My daughter flinched at the sharpness. Quiet dread moved through me like cold water. They were using her as punctuation. I put the invoice down on the counter and lifted both hands, palms out, the way you do around skittish animals. "Okay," I said softly. "We're going to do quiet right now. No more arguing." Holly's phone buzzed again, but she killed the screen fast, too fast. Her eyes were wide, startled, not at the buzz but at the fact that my daughter had heard the last one. They were losing control of the narrative inside the only mind in the house that mattered. I walked to the hallway, crouched a little, and held my hand out to my daughter. She took it, her fingers cold. I guided her back to her room, tucked her into bed even though it wasn't the routine anymore, and smoothed her hair like I could smooth the day. "Are you mad at Mom?" she whispered. "I'm mad at lies," I said. "I'm not mad at you. Never you." She nodded like she'd file that away for later. "Can you sleep here?" she asked. That question cracked something in me. She didn't mean in her room. She meant in the house. She meant, stay where I can hear you breathing. "I'm going to try," I said. When I stepped back into the living room, Holly and her mom were standing close together on the right side, heads bent, whispering. Holly's phone was between them like a shared prayer. I caught a few words that made my skin crawl. "Delete it," her mom murmured. "He saw it." Holly hissed, I know. They looked up when they felt me, like prey that heard a branch snap. "Give me your phone," Holly said immediately. "No," I said. "You're escalating again," she said, and her voice had that practiced calm. "If you don't stop, I'm calling someone." "Call whoever you want," I said. I picked up the invoice again. "This exists whether you call or not." Her mom stepped forward, face hard. "You're not taking that." I didn't move. Try. For a moment, no one spoke. The house held its breath. Then Holly's face changed into something I'd only seen twice before, when she decided a fight wasn't winnable in the moment. She took a slow breath and nodded once, like she'd accepted a plan I couldn't see yet. "Fine," she said. "Keep your paper." Then she turned and walked to the bedroom, and I heard drawers open. A closet door. The soft scrape of hangers. Quiet dread rose again, thick and choking. Not fear of her leaving. Fear of her preparing something. Her mom stayed behind and watched me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into their home. "You think you're clever," she said, "but you don't understand what you're doing." "What I'm doing," I whispered. "I'm trying to keep my job and my kid." "You're trying to destroy her," she said, and she meant Holly. She meant the version of Holly that never lies, never schemes, never gets caught. I didn't answer. I walked to the garage, shut the door behind me, and took a photo of the invoice with my phone, then another, then one with the router box in frame. Proof, proof, proof. I emailed it to myself from my personal account and to a burner Gmail I'd made years ago for spam. I wasn't brilliant. I was desperate. Desperate people learn fast. When I walked back inside, Holly was in the hallway with a small overnight bag. Not packed like someone leaving forever. Packed like someone making a move. "I'm taking her to my mom's," Holly said, voice controlled. My stomach dropped. "No." Holly didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "She needs calm." "She asked for quiet," I said, "not relocation." Holly's mom appeared beside her like a shadow. "You're not stopping them," she said. I went cold. I wanted to shout. I wanted to grab the bag and fling it across the room. I didn't. I pictured my daughter's face with those officers, the way she'd looked at all of us like we were too loud to trust. I forced my voice steady. "Ask her what she wants." Holly's jaw flexed. She didn't want that question asked, because she already knew the answer might not serve her. My daughter stepped out of her room again, rubbing one eye, Fox still tucked under her arm. She looked at the bag, then at Holly. "Are we leaving?" Holly smiled too big. "Just for a night, a little sleepover." My daughter's gaze slid to me. "Will Dad come?" Holly's smile tightened. "Dad needs time." My daughter whispered, "I don't want time. I want quiet." Holly's face hardened. Her mom reached for my daughter's shoulder, guiding her. My daughter leaned away, subtle but clear. That moment burned into me. Another frozen scene. My daughter in the middle with her Fox and her backpack strap slipping off her shoulder. Holly on the right holding the overnight bag like a verdict. Her mom reaching like a handler, and me standing left with my hands open and empty, trying to look safe in my own hallway. I swallowed. "I'll drive her to school in the morning," I said. "Normal morning. Quiet morning." Holly's eyes narrowed. "We'll see." That night, I barely slept. I lay on the couch, fully dressed, listening to the camera's faint electronic hum from the front door. Every time Holly's phone buzzed in the bedroom, my body tensed. The house felt like it had microphones in the drywall. Around 4:20 a.m., I heard Holly in the kitchen. Soft footsteps. The quiet scrape of a chair. A whispered phone call I couldn't make out, except for one phrase that floated through the dark like smoke. "He has receipts." Then silence. In the morning, Holly was already up, hair perfect, face composed like she'd slept 8 hours. Her mom was in the living room with coffee like she lived there. My daughter came out in her school clothes, eyes puffy, moving slow. I took my keys. "Come on, Bug, let's go." Holly stepped into the entryway, Right side again, blocking by posture alone. I'll take her. I'm taking her, I said. Holly's voice went sweet. Ryan, don't make a scene. My daughter whispered, Please don't. I breathed in, breathed out. No scene, I promised my kid. Just a ride. Holly hesitated, then stepped aside with a look that felt like permission granted on purpose. Like she wanted me to do it. Like it was part of the plan. The drive to school was quiet. Denver's streets were pale with early sun, the mountains sharp in the distance, the city pretending nothing was happening inside our car. My daughter stared out the window the whole time, Fox in her lap. When we pulled up, she finally spoke. Dad? Yeah? Are you going to go away? My throat tightened. No, I'm right here. She nodded, not convinced. Inside the school office, the secretary smiled at my daughter, then her smile flickered when she looked at her screen. She clicked something, frowned, and looked up at me with that careful professional face. Mr. Carter, she said quietly, can you step over here for a moment? I did, my stomach already sinking. She lowered her voice. There's an alert on the file. An alert, I repeated. Yes, she said, eyes darting to my daughter who stood near the wall hugging her backpack. It says we're not to release her to you without confirmation from her mother. My mouth went dry. That doesn't make any sense. I'm her father. The secretary swallowed. I'm sorry, I don't make the notes. I just follow them. Quiet dread flooded me so hard my hands went numb. I pictured Holly's calm, her overnight bag, the way she'd stepped aside like she wanted me to take the bait. I leaned closer, voice shaking despite my best effort. Who put the alert in? The secretary hesitated, then turned the screen slightly just enough for me to see one line. Emergency contact. I stared at it, heart hammering. Who's the emergency contact? The secretary clicked again, and her face changed in a way that made me feel sick. She looked up at me, apologetic. It's listed as Evan Mercer. My vision narrowed. The air got thin. Behind me, my daughter's small voice cut through the office like a blade. Dad, she whispered, why is Mom's phone on your boss's name? I turned, and my daughter was staring at the office counter where the secretary's phone sat, screen lit up with a missed call banner. My daughter's eyes were wide and wet, and in that second I realized the plan wasn't just to take my job or install a camera. It was to rewrite who I was to everyone who could sign a form. The secretary reached for the phone like she'd suddenly remembered it existed. I'm sorry, she said again, too late. My own phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking fingers. A new email. Certified packet preview attached. Subject: Notice of Termination and Safety Directive. And before I could open it, a text from Holly came in, calm as a knife. Holly, don't fight this at school. They're watching. I looked up at my daughter, then at the office door, then at the security camera in the corner of the ceiling, blinking red like it had been waiting for me. I didn't open the termination email in the school office. I couldn't, not with my daughter standing there, eyes wide, watching every adult face like it might turn sharp. I'm her father, I told the secretary, forcing my voice into something calm enough to be believed. Please call the principal. I'll wait right here. She nodded, flustered, and my daughter slid her hand into mine like she was trying to anchor me to the floor. The principal came out a minute later with a counselor, both wearing that careful school kindness that turns brittle when paperwork shows up. The principal asked me to step aside. The counselor guided my daughter toward a chair near the wall, her backpack clutched to her chest. Then the front doors opened again. Holly walked in first, right side of the entrance like she owned the frame. Evan Mercer followed a step behind her, too clean, too composed, like he'd dressed for a meeting and not a crisis. A school resource officer moved in behind them, hand on his radio, scanning my posture like I was the hazard. A frozen scene burned into me. My daughter seated with her backpack and Fox, the counselor crouched beside her, me standing left with my phone in one hand and the crumpled router invoice in the other, Holly on the right staring me down with her phone glowing, Evan behind her with a folder tucked under his arm, and the school camera above the office desk blinking red like an unblinking witness. The principal's eyes went from them to me. "Mr. Carter, we need to follow the emergency contact instructions." I looked at Evan, and my voice came out thin. "Why are you here?" Evan didn't flinch. "I'm here to support Holly. This is a sensitive situation." Holly stepped forward, calm as a knife. "Ryan, don't do this here." "Don't do what?" I said. "Exist." The counselor's hand tightened on my daughter's shoulder. My kid's face went pale. She whispered, barely audible, "Dad, quiet." That single word hit harder than any accusation. I swallowed the heat in my throat and lowered my voice until it felt like I was talking through cotton. "Okay, quiet." The principal turned his monitor slightly, just enough that I could see the contact form. My name was there, listed as father, but the emergency contact field underneath had Evan's name and the relationship box. It didn't say boss or family friend. My vision narrowed like someone had dimmed the room. "That's wrong," I said. I heard myself saying it, but it didn't sound like me. That's not possible." Holly's face tightened, then smoothed again into something rehearsed. "It's a clerical error." Evan's mouth moved like he might speak, then he stopped, and that hesitation told me more than any words. The school resource officer shifted his weight. "Sir, we're going to need you to step back." I did because my daughter was watching, and she'd asked for quiet. I stepped back so far my spine hit the wall. My phone buzzed again. Certified packet preview, still unopened. I walked to the corner by the vending machine out of everyone's direct line and opened the attachment with shaking fingers. The first page was my termination notice, written in clean HR language about access concerns and conduct. The second page was worse. A safety directive stating I wasn't to enter company property, contact executives, or discuss internal systems. It read like a restraining order without the courtroom. Then I scrolled. A scanned document, older, a lab header, a word that made my stomach drop straight through the floor. I stared at the names until my eyes burned. My daughter's name was there, Holly's name, and the alleged father line wasn't mine. It was Evan Mercer's. I felt the quiet dread turn into something hollow, like my body was suddenly too big for my bones. All the nights I'd stayed up with fevers, all the scraped knees, the bedtime books, the first time she rode a bike and screamed my name like I was the whole world. None of that disappeared, but the ground under it shifted. Behind me I heard Holly speaking to the principal in that soft, reasonable voice. "He's been under stress. He's not coping well. We just want what's best for her." Evan added, low and confident, "We need to keep this stable." Stable. Housekeeping. Quiet words for loud betrayals. I walked back toward them, still keeping my voice small. "Holly," I said, "come here. Just you." Holly's eyes flicked to Evan. Evan's jaw tightened. Then he nodded once like a boss granting permission. Holly followed me 2 steps away, still on the right side of the hallway, keeping her body angled like she could retreat to Evan if she needed to. I showed her the document on my screen, the paternity page, the names. Her face drained of color so fast it looked unreal. "Tell me this is fake," I said, and my voice didn't rise, but it shook anyway. "Tell me I'm reading it wrong." Holly's lips parted and nothing came out for a beat. Then she whispered, "Ryan." That was the answer. My throat burned. "How long?" Holly's eyes filled, but her tears didn't fall. She was too busy holding her mask in place. "It was 1 time," she said, and the lie was so old it sounded practiced. "I didn't know. Then I did know. Then I was scared. Evan said he'd fix it." "Fix it," I repeated, and the word tasted like metal. "By taking my job. By putting cameras on my house. By making the school think I'm dangerous." Holly flinched. "You were going to find out." I looked past her shoulder at Evan, standing a few feet away, arms folded, face calm, and in that calm I finally saw the shape of it, clean and sharp. He hadn't stumbled into my life. He'd been managing it, like a system ticket. I turned back to Holly. "You let him put himself down as her father." Holly's voice went smaller. "He is." The hallway felt too bright, too loud, even without yelling. My daughter's whisper echoed in my head. "Quiet, quiet." I exhaled through my nose, slow, and forced myself to look at the only person who mattered. My daughter sat by the counselor, watching me like she was trying to decode whether I was still safe. I walked over and crouched in front of her. "Hey," I said gently. "You didn't do anything wrong, okay?" Her eyes shimmered. "Are you going away?" I swallowed hard. "No, I'm right here." She stared at me for a long second. Then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against my shoulder, small and heavy at the same time. "I want quiet," she whispered again, and it wasn't a request anymore. It was a plea. I stood and faced the principal. "I'm on her birth certificate," I said, voice steady now because the shock had hardened into clarity. "I'm her legal father. That document doesn't change who's raised her. I'm asking you to freeze this emergency contact update until there's a court order. Today." The principal hesitated. The counselor's eyes moved to Holly, then to Evan, then back to me. The school resource officer shifted again like he wanted the simplest resolution. Evan stepped forward, calm, polished. "This isn't necessary." I looked him dead in the eye. "You don't get to talk about necessary in my child's school." The principal drew in a breath, then nodded. "We can put a temporary hold. Both parents will need to provide updated documentation." Holly's face tightened. Evan's calm finally cracked. Just a hair. That afternoon, I didn't go home. I took my daughter to a quiet park where the snow was patchy and the air smelled like pine and car exhaust. We sat on a bench with hot chocolate from a drive-thru, her little hands wrapped around the cup. She didn't ask whose blood was whose. She didn't ask for explanations. She just leaned into my side and watched the swings move in the wind. That night, I slept on my sister's couch with my daughter tucked into a blanket fort on the floor. Before she fell asleep, she looked at me and said, very seriously, "Don't fight. Just be my dad." I nodded, and the tears finally came. Silent. Because she'd asked for quiet and I couldn't fail her one more time. In the weeks that followed, the truth didn't explode all at once. It bled out through paperwork, lawyers, meetings, and the kind of conversations that leave you empty for days. Holly moved in with her mom. Evan resigned right after my lawyer requested the audit logs in writing. The doorbell camera vanished from my house one afternoon, like it had never been there, but I still felt watched for a long time afterward. And my daughter, she never picked a side. She picked quiet. She picked a bedtime story and a steady hand and the promise that no adult would use her as a weapon again.